All right, welcome in, welcome in. Let's get our Facebook friends in here, and then we'll officially kick off Monday morning show. Got spinning wheels 1 and 2. All right, welcome in. It is the 6th of May. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendall, joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how is the coffee treating you this morning? Happy Monday to you. Hopefully it's nicer there than it is out here in the Pacific Northwest. We've been dealing with rain, wind, and temperatures 10 to 15 degrees below normal, but summer's coming. The end of this week looking pretty nice.
Yeah, we got good rain at night, which was nice. So, grass growing weather, and should be nice and hot today. So, like I said, it's grass growing weather here in the South, and make hay. So, yeah, lots going on. Lots of quarterback talk with the Denver Broncos. I think Broncos fans have circled the wagons pretty good, and it's not just Broncos about their draft picks. And I'm ready for the rubber to hit the road. I'm ready for some football.
Yeah, we're still a ways off from that. The next big thing will hopefully get the rookies' numbers announced here pretty soon. And then coming up, I think in about a week, Scott, we should get the schedule release. I don't think there's been an official date announced yet. We know the home road stuff. I saw that. I don't know how much credit we want to give them, but the Brown, whoever the Brown receiver, Anthony Brown, names totally escaped me, for the Steelers for a number of years. Antonio Brown does the CT ESPN kind of nonsense there, but they did release the uniforms and everything, and they said that expect the Broncos at the Steelers week 1. That's not happening because the Steelers are playing at Denver, but I'd be 0% shocked if we got Russell Wilson playing in Denver week 1. So we'll see what happens, though, but I'm pretty excited to see what happens. Yeah, and we got it here. Robot of Doomson. Thoughts on the potential rumored week 1 matchup, Steelers versus Broncos, Russ versus Sean? I'd love that. For a storyline perspective, that would be awesome. We will see if it plays out. I feel like a lot of times the Broncos kind of get saddled with, a West Coast matchup week 1 a lot of times, which makes sense. But I know the CT ESPN with Antonio Brown, they said Denver at Steelers, but that's impossible. Steelers will be playing at Denver this season. We know that. Details. I think it's very possible that's the
details. Feels like we've had revenge games going on with Denver. I guess that's what happens when your team is actually relevant. But with the player movement, Russ back to Seattle, Nathaniel Hackett back to Denver. You don't want to go 0-3 in these. You should have beat Seattle. You should have beat the Jets. Steelers are pretty good. The Steelers are probably the best team of that bunch. You don't want Russell Wilson coming back with, he handled it with grace publicly, at least, he would, love my time in Denver. It's a great place, great fans, coach speak, you got to learn your cliches, but still you don't want that to happen. Everybody else would be chirping. That's for sure.
Yeah. And for the NFL, it'll come down to that. That could be a good week 1 matchup, but is it so juicy that it's going to get a primetime slot? Probably not. Those are two teams that are pretty squarely middle of the pack last season. Probably going to end up there about again this year.
But that doesn't matter with the Cowboys, and the Steelers are hugely popular nationally. So are the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson is a big name still.
Do you think that'll be a primetime game, though?
I think it's got a chance. I'd have to see what else would be there. But yeah, on a Sunday night, you're not worried about, this is a big matchup. The AFC behemoths, who cares? We need storylines in week 1.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like a lot of times
playing for playoff seeds or anything,
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like a lot of times week 1 they give you a big time Titans playing in those primetime matches.
3 to choose from, though.
And then you maybe see like Denver Steelers week 3. Like Sunday night week 3, Russ returns home. But we'll see. That would be a great matchup.
You got to get it early because you don't know if Russell Wilson will still be the quarterback by week 3.
God, that is true. We'll see what happens there. I don't know. Did you see the Steelers talking about Justin Fields maybe doing some kick return stuff? He's been one of the best athletes on the field, most dynamic ball carriers in football the last few seasons. So I guess it makes sense with the new kickoff rules, especially if you're not trying to protect your quarterback so much. Maybe that's a Taysom Hill role for Justin Fields. But I digress. Let's say hello to some people in the chats as we're getting rolling here. Good morning. Good morning. Excited to see what the Broncos schedule will be whenever that does come out. And I am expecting the Mile High Huddle meet and greet to be earlier this season than last year. So expect sometime in September if you're already looking ahead. Jeremy Sean comes in and says, morning, boys. I don't want to put any statistical expectations on a rookie quarterback, just steady growth and passing the eye test. I do think there's some baseline statistics you want here. I don't want him to be Bryce Young last season or Josh Rosen year one or Sam Darnold. If you're playing in that category of quarterback bucket year one, given Denver's competency on the offensive side of the ball, like this isn't a horrific, nonsense coaching staff that doesn't know what they're doing, or like Denver, terrible offensive line. You shouldn't get bottom 5 quarterback from your quarterback this season. But I think that would be, I'm not expecting that at all. Is that putting statistical expectations? I guess it is to an extent. So just not abhorrent.
I know what Jeremy's saying here, and I agree. You don't want to see, it's like, okay, missing the open receiver. Does he look confident in the pocket? Is he in command as opposed to, I mean, the one that I want to use as a bad example is not even Bryce Young, because that was such a bad situation. I'm not sure what we have from Bryce Young yet, but was Zach Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson, when you watched him, looked totally uncomfortable. The more time he had, the better protection he got, the worse he was. It was all of the type of things that made you say, yeesh, this guy just doesn't have it, at least not yet. As a cheap flyer, why not, for the Denver Broncos? But if you thought Zach Wilson was an actual viable option, you don't draft Bo Nix.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I understand what Jeremy's saying here. Does the guy look it? Does he look comfortable out there? Can he hit the open receivers? Is he getting rid of the ball quickly? Is he making good reads? All of those type of things, you got a pretty good idea early on, then you hope it improves.
I will say those are upstream from the statistical output, but if you're doing those things, more than not, you're going to have a good statistical output at the same time, or at least not horrific. So we'll see what happens here with Bo Nix. Again, talk about him being a great fit with Sean Payton. Does a lot of things well, most seasoned rookie quarterback in the history of football. So that's going to be something that'll be interesting to follow. But again, it's everything for me. I'm not going to outright exclude puzzle pieces when they can better influence and inform. Not influence, but inform. But that's just me. You can't do it without the eye test.
Real quick, a lot's been talked about, Bo Nix's age. But I tell you, the older I get, the more seriously I know I have to take care of my health and nutrition. Enter AG1. For people like us sitting at the laptop for hours, writing articles, doing podcasts, and become all too convenient to rely on coffee and caffeine. But I don't always want a second cup of coffee in the afternoons. And I can always use a kick of nutrition as well. With AG1, you get sustained energy. On top of that, I'm not a big fan of multivitamins, and I've learned recently how important it is to take care of your gut health. AG1 kills all 3 of those birds with one stone, and it does so in an impressive, life-altering fashion. Improved gut health, focus, energy, and nutrition. It's like a grand slam right there. All in one awesome smoothie or mixed in a refreshing, delicious cup of water. AG1 is next level.
Yeah, AG1 is a supplement I trust to support my whole body health and help me feel my very best. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/huddle. Again, that's drinkag1.com/huddle. Check it out. So let's say hello to some more people in here as we get in the show going. We got Kenneth coming in here saying, what do you expect out of Javonte 1 year removed from his injury? If you had to bet who will be the starting center, I expect serviceable play from Javonte Williams this season. I'm hoping to see better tackle breaking ability. I mean, let's be real, Scott. Last season, it's not fair to him, but the tape was the tape. It was not very good last season. Some of the issues with his vision and patience really manifested itself when you're not seeing him break tackles at nearly the same rate he was before the injury. But leading up to that injury, Scott, last offseason, a year ago, we're like, we might not have Javonte Williams at all in 2023 because of the severity of the knee injury. So really, last year, again, the tape was the tape. He wasn't very good. But I'm willing to kind of come at it with a somewhat clean-ish perspective. It's a running back with an injury that's a year older, right? That's still the reality of it. But he had an unbelievable injury that he came from. He could look like a totally different guy this year. So what is my expectation? Hopefully something like we saw his rookie season. I don't know if that's fair, but I'm hoping for a different guy than we saw last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're actually punishing Javonte Williams for coming back, which is crazy. The guy had a miraculous statistically improbable recovery, and we're kind of knocking him for it. Like, oh, okay, well, he wasn't as good as he should have been. Are you kidding? We didn't think he'd be out there at all. Considering what our expectations were this time last year for Javonte Williams, he was a miracle that he was out there at all. 1 year removed, Kenny, that's the big one right there. So it will be, and then some. It'll be, a full year and a full year of recovery where he's been able to get it. And I expect him to be a menace is what I expect. I expect him to be a handful out there, breaking tackles, making some of those YouTube highlight type of plays where he's punishing people out there. So I think Javonte Williams will be very, very good for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the room looks like as well, but it should be a pretty interesting battle there. You got Estime, of course, McLaughlin, P. Ryan. But again, he's somebody who, like you said, miraculous that he even played at all last season. Last year of his contract, I'm hoping to see a Javonte Williams that looks a lot more like his first year and 3 games than what we saw last season. Still have questions about the vision and patience, but if he can be breaking a little bit more tackles, that should be great. As far as who will be the starting center, I think right now you'd probably have to bet on Forsyth, I think, based on what we've heard internally. But I would not rule out Mustafar. I can't ever remember the name there, Scott, because there's like a Star Wars planet called Mustafar. But the center the Broncos brought in from the Bears.
But my first thought on that part was Forsyth also. You know, he was the one that was getting talked up. Why talk up a backup center in the offseason unless you don't plan on putting him in there?
Yeah.
So that's reading the tea leaves. That's my expectations is that Forsyth wins it, but we'll see. We'll see. I certainly wouldn't want to put a lot of money on that one for sure.
And our lads has Wattenberg as the number 1 option, but that's just, they do a really good job of predicting that stuff. Like they run by a former
been there the longest
scout. He's been there the longest, but he's played more guard reps when given a chance than center. And also he was a pick from the previous coaching regime where Forsyth was picked underneath Payton and Streif and all of them right now. So we got Michael Ronquillo says, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Great to see you, Michael. Appreciate you coming in with the support. Lawrence Rivera says, what's up, guys? Do you think it'll be a bad year to give Steelers Russell Wilson, especially since we're in their division this year? We played the entire AFC North this year? I don't even remember, but we definitely played
the last couple years, so I wouldn't think so, but I don't remember.
We played the Steelers this year because I think we both finished 3rd in the AFC. So that's kind of.
And you didn't give the Steelers Russell Wilson. You cut Russell Wilson, and he was a free agent. He chose the Pittsburgh Steelers because he was a free agent.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about Russell Wilson to that extent. And if Denver loses to them, it's not going to be any more embarrassing than losing to the Seahawks week 1 or the Nathaniel Hackett.
Bad one, man.
That one, yeah.
The Seahawks was okay. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of hype around there, but Sean Payton and Nathaniel Hackett, Denver Broncos, Nathaniel Hackett at Denver. The Jets are awful. The Seahawks were a good team. I think they made the playoffs that year.
They did.
The Jets were horrendous. They were horrendous coming in to lose that game. We go back and look at the Monday morning Broncos for breakfast after that game. I was ready to burn it all down. Just sell everybody, trade what you can, torch it, nuke it all.
Yep. And then they end up going on a little run there after that. So who knows what the world would have been like if that didn't happen. Keith Brugman says, many say Caleb Williams is walking in the best situation in the top 3 quarterbacks. Where would you put Nix in the top 6 for you? I'm going to put Penix in a box here, Scott, because it's such a weird situation with Kirk Cousins there. So like offensive personnel wise, he's definitely top 2. I think that number 1 is definitely JJ McCarthy for me. You have 2 awesome offensive tackles in Christian Darrisaw, who might be the most underrated offensive lineman in football right now. Brian O'Neill's a really good right tackle. And then you have a trio of weapons that might be as good as any trio of weapons in football, and partially because they have the best wide receiver in football in Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, who's coming off a knee injury. We'll wait and see what that looks like. But Kevin O'Connell's also probably one of the top 3 to 5 offensive minds in football right now. Teams are people I talk with who have league connections are like, this guy's gets it. I mean, what he did last year at Dobbs was incredible. Getting him up to speed so fast, he's been awesome. After that, I'd probably say the Bears. Offensive line still has some question marks, but like what they do with the run game, Jenkins and Wright. You got Cole Kmet. You got obviously Roma Dunze and DJ Moore. That's a really good room as well. Then after that, I'd probably go Bo Nix in Denver. The Sean Payton effect's big. The solidness of the offensive line and the floor of the weaponry. I don't think the weapons in Denver have a high ceiling, but you have a bevy of options where at least I think the floor is pretty high for them overall. And it's kind of not hard to be over the Commanders and the Patriots when you look at what they have. Those are just terrible situations for those two quarterbacks. Just terrible.
That's kind of what I was looking at too, Nick, was just, I think I know who's last. I don't know who's, the two with Washington and New England. I'm like, am I biased here just because I think Washington's been a dumpster fire ever since Snyder bought them, which has been a long time? Is that my bias? Am I biased in thinking that New England is still a stable organization and they should be okay and they can protect a quarterback because their defense is so good? I don't know, but just looking at the offensive lines and the receivers and stuff, it's not a great situation for a rookie quarterback in Washington and New England. I don't think it's a great situation, honestly, in Denver for Bo Nix to come in and have a lot of instant success where you're talking about a CJ Stroud type of season where you've got, I think that would be year 2 where the Broncos want to try. They're just trying to survive this year, man. With the cap hit, the offensive line, are you going to even keep Cortland Sutton? The wide receiver room isn't great. You still could use another player in there. The running back room, we just had some questions about the running back room. Javonte is there. What about Estime? How good can he be? That I don't think it's a great situation for Bo Nix, but it's not New England and Washington. That's where I would say the best one. I could see Caleb Williams. That's a much better situation there. But it's just a little weird that he's coming in where he basically has to save the head coach's job. Mm-hmm. That's a little interesting that you could draft a guy and the coach is fired that same year. Michael Penix, I think, would be in a great situation if he were to start. And then J.J. McCarthy, I think Minnesota is in a pretty solid situation. 1 year removed from 14-3 record or something, 15-2 or something crazy.
Yeah.
11, I don't know. They won a bunch of games. 12-5, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they had and then they did really well with a bevy of quarterbacks last year. So
yeah, the Vikings are coming off an unprecedented one score record, right? They were like 10-0 or something crazy.
And then the injuries hit.
And then, that's something we know year to year. A lot of things that are fluctuate. The one score games, turnovers, year to year, typically, especially fumbles, not very stable. So predictive. If you have you're really strong there, or injuries. That's another one. If you have really good or bad 1 year, expect it to stabilize next season. It's a re-roll of the dice. Gary Palmer coming in 1999 says, I'm crazy, so this is my prediction. Bo will have a Brock Purdy-like season. Love you guys. And Scott, this is coming back to the offensive situation. I would love a Brock Purdy season, but I don't think Denver has the offensive supporting cast that's possible for a quarterback. I guess anything's possible. That it's probable for a quarterback like Bo Nix. I would say right now, Brock Purdy has 3 Hall of Famers on offense that he's playing with right now, along with 2 Pro Bowlers. I would be shocked if Denver has a singular Hall of Famer on their offensive staff right now. Maybe 1 Pro Bowler on the offensive side. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what Bo Nix does. But like Quinn Miners is the only guy on the unit right now that I'm like, oh, that's somebody could be a perennial Pro Bowler. The rest of them, I don't know. And you're talking about the staff or the cast in general. I'd probably give the offensive line, Scott, a B, and the weaponry a C- to D+ right now. So I think it's very middle of the pack when you look at the NFL landscape at the whole. And that's a hard ask for a quarterback to come in and be a savior.
And Gary, what season are we talking about? Because he only started 5 games in his rookie season. I think we'll see a lot more from Brock Purdy. I want to see a season where he's at least positive on the turnovers. I don't expect 2-1. That'd be great. But, if you go 20 touchdowns, 25 combined, because he can run, 25 touchdowns against 15 turnovers, that's not a bad rookie season statistically for this team.
I am with you 100% on that. And I will say I don't think the 2-1 is egregious for Bo Nix because the rushing aspect. He is a good athlete. He is built. He's strong. He is sturdy. He's tenacious as a runner. And he does all of that while protecting the football. Scott, this guy in college to date, maybe it's the big mitts, maybe it's, just a smart player, does not fumble the football. We'll see if the interception rate translates, because I watched the tape. I'm like, man, there's some throws there where it's like, I'm not sure.
He's not going to be a 16-1 touchdown to interception ratio guy like he was in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah,
but again, if he were to say, like I said, if he goes 25 to 15 touchdowns to turnovers, I would consider that a successful rookie season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm hoping for, if anything worse than like Kenny Pickett, we have problems, right? That's kind of like the line there where it's 2,500 yards year one.
They were unbelievably inept moving the ball through the air last year. I mean, Kenny Pickett, what did he end up having? He started 12 games. He had 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in 12 games. That's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awful.
I'm thinking more rookie season, Kenny Pickett, but like that you talk about putting a statistical
he was
line
7-9 as a rookie.
Yeah,
not 7 great. Touchdowns and 9 interceptions as a rookie. The man doesn't put the ball in the end zone at all. That's what I'm saying. 25 and 15 as a rookie would be pretty good.
Great. Yeah. I'm just saying that we don't want to put a statistical line on it. There is a statistical line out there, in my opinion. Coach Chris
I don't want the bar to be Kenny Pickett. If you're Kenny Pickett, you're upset.
You're looking to replace him next season, if that's the case, in my opinion, unless things totally fall off the rails.
No, I agree. They replaced Kenny Pickett last year. They replaced him after his first year.
2 years, but that's okay.
No, it was in his second year that he was no longer a starter. Now, it may have been some injury related, but they were looking to replace him after the first year.
He got 12 games though last year as well, so it was still a viable sample. You typically know about these guys after 16 to 20 starts. Coach Chris comes in and says, I ran into an ex-Jets player this weekend. He was raving about the guy we fleeced for them. Hope this guy's right. Said he has an endless motor, great attitude, and strong locker room presence. Talking about John Franklin Myers. Yeah, he had a little bit of a step back last season statistically, so we're on watch there. But the way the contract is set up, it's a 1-year deal with an option year. After that, Denver can move on, I think, save $7 million with only 3 dead in 2025. So yeah, he's a great addition to the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he is a quote unquote like difference maker, but as far as adding another quality option to the line with some versatility, and as you mentioned here, the relentless motor, Denver's added a few of those guys this offseason, along with Ellis as well. So when you play quarterbacks who are, pocket manipulators, extending time like Patrick Mahomes, guys who are unrelenting, I think have a lot more value. Can you get they're just, effort sacks or coverage sacks or secondhand sacks. Well, if you don't give up on plays, you're giving yourself a chance there to create negatives for the opposing team and take the ball away. So I'm a big fan of John Franklin Myers, especially for Denver giving up, what was it, a 2026 6th-round pick for him in the end. I think it's a good deal for Denver. It's one of those ones that you see the sticker price and you're like, this is too good to be true. What's going on here? I know that teams way overvalue their draft picks compared to trading for veterans. I think it was Eric Eager for Sumer Sports did for the Data Bowl this season for NFL Analytics. They did where's the biggest market deficiency right now where teams can take advantage, and it's trading for veterans on those contract players. That's the biggest discrepancy. If you can do that, you can get a lot of value in return. Hopefully that's the case here with John Franklin Myers to Denver. But yeah, excited to see him. Curious to see what his role will be. Played a lot of 7 technique, reducing to 4-eye or 3 for the Jets. Probably going to be more 4-eye like Zach Allen in Denver, but we'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, you said not necessarily a difference maker, but I disagree on this one just because he can be a difference maker for your team. When we talk about if he takes the 500 snaps away from Jonathan Harris, you're going to notice a difference.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by that. It's just the floor was set so low, and I hate to keep bagging on him. It's not his fault. It's not Jonathan Harris's fault that he wasn't good enough to be a starter in the NFL. That's not his fault. That's a failure of the Denver Broncos. That has been corrected. This is a legitimate guy to go John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones, Zach Allen. All right, front three's looking pretty good now. That's that's each guy over there's 290 plus. and you're still lacking a little bit of size at nose guard, but that's a big upgrade, in my opinion, Nick.
Yeah, we'll see what these guys play at. I think Zach Allen's 280, 285. And I think, John, let me pull up this stats here for his actual
PFF
weight.
says 288.
288. So still a little light in theory, but you got Roach as well, a part of the rotation, and maybe you'll still bring in another nose tackle or something. You definitely have raised the floor of the defensive line a lot this offseason. I think it's the area you've actually, besides in theory quarterback play, it's the area you've improved the roster the most, given your limited pathways to improve the team this season. Troy come in, says, hey guys, if Nix progresses, young defensive back room settles in long-term starters, and offensive line gets better again under Streif, I'm encouraged going forward. All Sean Payton guys by then too. Have a great show. I mean, really, all you need here is if Nix progresses and shows he's the guy, then you should be encouraged, because that's the start and end of the conversation. If you end up having an answer at quarterback, and it doesn't even have to be a franchise guy or a superstar on a rookie quarterback contract, you give yourself a window, year 3, year 4, year 5, if he shows to be a competent quarterback. Let's say he's just Tua level quarterback. I think with Sean Payton, you can build a team where you have a chance to compete with anybody on that rookie quarterback contract. We'll worry about the paying him when that point comes. That's, hopefully a half decade from now. But I'm with you. The one thing also I will say here, Scott, offensive line getting better again under Streif. I think that's possible. My one red flag here is that Denver had the 3rd healthiest offensive line in the entire NFL last season. I think it was something like 99.6% of the snaps from the offensive line came from starters. That's very unlikely to happen again. And Denver did not add a lot of premium depth or young improving talent on the offensive line. So I think you're more likely to see offensive line regression due to injury than see them take another step forward this season.
Troy talks about the young DB room here in the Super. Thank you, Troy. It reminded me of last year in the conversation we were having about which position group has the biggest volatility from floor to ceiling. And we said last year was the edge group. Remember, it was just a year ago. We're talking, it feels like longer than that. I have to check my facts in my head. I'm like, wasn't Randy Gregory a Denver Bronco 12 months ago?
Yeah.
8 months ago?
Frank Clark, right?
And Frank Clark, doesn't that seem like, that seems like 100 years ago, man.
Yeah.
Then you got the young guys, Nick Bonito, and what's the health be like of Baron Browning? I feel like this year that goes into the volatility of the defensive back room, where you could have the highest ceiling on this. You've lost Justin Simmons and replaced him, but PFF says that's okay. And then you've got Pat Surtain, so the floor shouldn't bottom out totally. But you start looking around at some of the other players coming in, and you're like, okay, what can you get from Riley Moss? That's one of the guys to look at. What are you going to get from your safety group? Can Damari Mathis come back at all? It feels like, is Delarian Turner-Yell, is Caden Stearns going to be healthy? I just feel like you've got the highest variance, besides quarterback, with the defensive backs this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's tools there. There's potential there.
I agree with you. I think we do have to toss in, if you're talking defensive back group, I would add the entire back 7. Let's toss linebacker into it as well, because very small sample size, terrible opponent for it. But last season, when you lost your heady players in the back 7 in Josie Jewell and Justin Simmons, you gave up 70 points. Small sample size, and you have an offseason now to kind of try to figure it out. But you mentioned the cornerback 2 spot. You mentioned the safety 2 spot and safety 1 spot. What does that look like? And then the linebacker opposite Singleton. I mean, Barton / Strnad / Griffith. A lot of questions on that back 7. That's something I come back to here, Scott, is, this year you're going to try to just kind of figure it out. But on paper, I think it's the defense is the area that took the biggest step back overall. Even though you improve the defensive line, I think that'll help a lot. Back 7 is not great. I mean, right now on paper, all you have is you have one all-pro player, of course. Yes, Surtain. Mm-hmm. But after that, Singleton and Jones are solid-ish. The rest of it is complete question marks. Absolutely no idea. We won't know until later on.
I think of it this way: is I think Levi Wallace is an upgrade over Fabian Moreau. I think you got better there. Brandon Jones, that's going to be questionable, and Caden Stearns is a big question. But then I look back, when we start talking about the too deep on here, Riley Moss was a high draft pick you had high hopes for. Damari Mathis played well as a rookie and regressed normally. There's variance there. PJ Locke was a starter last year. Caden Stearns, you expected to be a starter, but has battled healthy. It's just the variance. This could end up being a disaster. It could end up being really good.
We'll see about the very good. I mean, and one thing I will say too is that outside of boundary cornerback 1, every single one of those spots on the defense, you can pay. Those guys are in free agency every single year. Now, your true, all-pro linebacker, maybe not, but cornerback 2, safeties, competent linebackers, those aren't positions where you have to use first-round picks to get those guys. So once Denver's salary cap stuff is a little bit more stabilized and you have more buying power, especially next offseason, I think in theory you can buy competency on the back 7 when you already have a true cornerback 1. So that's my theory on how they're building this team right now, is that we can be bad there for a year and kind of figure things out and patch it together. And then once we either know that we have something with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix or not, we can spend money. And I think we've seen a number of teams go that route with their spending.
I want to hit on Lawrence with a couple of stars real quick. He says, I honestly think that's why Russell Wilson chose the Steelers, because he knew he was going to face us. Antonio Brown even came out saying that we were going to face the Steelers in the first game of the year. I think the Steelers were probably the best team that had awful quarterback play, and he saw an opportunity to come in and make an impact. It made sense all along. The two teams that were mentioned and just happened to both be on the Broncos schedule were the Steelers and the Falcons. Both decent rosters, decent situations, and really desperately in need of a quarterback. The Raiders were one of those other teams. I don't know how much sense that made unless they really wanted to stick it to Denver and wanted to stay out west. But the Steelers just made sense for Russell Wilson. And coming back, appreciate the support. He says, if Bo wears 23, he'll win 10. If not, less than 10 is my prediction. That's how much the number means. Lawrence, I think you misunderstood the guys last night. He won't wear 10, can't wear 10, isn't going. 23, can't wear 23, won't wear 23. So I think you misunderstood. It was the person who was previously number 1 changed to 23 was the discussion, a cornerback. Bo Nix isn't going to wear 23.
No. And the other part about the Russell Wilson, the Steelers conversation, Scott, we saw the quarterbacks fly off the board this season. Steelers were in purgatory at quarterback, where they are consistently too good to be drafting a first round caliber quarterback, especially if what we've seen the last couple seasons with the market at quarterback continues.
There's no middle class anymore.
Exactly. So the 20th pick, you are, unless you want to mortgage your future for a guy.
Who do you get in the 20s now?
Nobody. It doesn't exist. Yeah.
Let's go back the last several years. Who do you get in the 20s? You could have Will Levis. Okay.
Levis. Yep.
He's in that neighborhood. Mac Jones was up there, but he 15. Should have been in that neighborhood. He's in the teens.
It should have been day 2.
Yeah. At least you're in the neighborhood of a trade up where, I'm talking like 15 to 30, back half of the first round. Kenny Pickett, Will Levis, and Mac Jones. That's it.
Yeah.
In the last 4 drafts, 21, 22, 23, 24. Last 4 drafts, 3.
Yep. It's crazy. We've had a major shift in the quarterback draft evaluation and market. DWI guys coming in. Yeah, Jordan Love, that was 2020. I think that we've seen enough of a change now that if Jordan Love was in this last cycle, he would have gone somewhere from he would have gone top 10, top 12, just because the middle class is dried up. But we'll see if that continues to play out. Maybe we've jumped shark there. We'll see how Penix, McCarthy, and Nix do in that regard. Ethan comes in and says, good morning, gents in Broncos country. Watched an interview with Nix over the weekend. I must say it was music to my ears to hear a quarterback talking about going through progressions, reading defense at the line, being on time. Yeah, I will say, the evaluation will be the evaluation on Nix. No matter what happens with him, it's not because he doesn't get it from a work perspective, the effort, professionalism perspective. and he is going to maximize his abilities, in my opinion. So again, this is all, we're in the honeymoon stage. He's going to say the right things. He's, again, one of the most accomplished volume quarterback in college football history with 61 starts. He knows what it takes to be a professional quarterback, in my opinion, as any rookie's ever been. But we'll see what it looks like on the field.
Yeah, and he's going to win the press conferences. He's a good kid. He's very smart. He's well-schooled, and he's mature. He's absolutely going to win those. I was at a wedding recently where I said I could sum up one of the speeches from somebody else, not the bride or groom, by saying, I can sum it up by saying they sounded like an opera singer warming up. Me, 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 me. You're not going to hear that out of Bo Nix. He's going to be all about team, making his teammates better. What does he have to do to learn? And he will absolutely win the offseason. That will help him win the room. It'll help him win over Broncos country. Now let's get it done on the field.
Yep. And talking about getting it on the field.
Appreciate you, Ethan. Hope you're doing well.
I do want to get to this article from PFF as well. We'll get to Hayden Presley real quick after this. But first thing I want to talk about here, the three categories here for PFF's article recently on the Broncos drafting Bo Nix, why he will be successful in Denver. Their first thing is quarterback play under pressure. They write, NFL quarterbacks must be able to perform when the pressure is on. Pressure comes in many forms: pressure of the situation and physical pressure in the presence of pass rush or a closing pocket. Nix was the best signal caller in the nation in the latter over the past 2 seasons. His 86.2 pressured passer grading was the best of 11 quarterbacks drafted, far exceeding Penix at 65.1, marked second. If there is a knock on Nix, it's that the average depth of target was by far the lowest in the class, under pressure at 9.9 yards. The shorter the throw, the easier it is to be accurate. That said, finding a positive play when pressure is key, and no one is better than Nix at doing that over the past 2 seasons. The Oregon offense generated a positive play on 47.8% of his pressure dropbacks, with Michigan being second at 41.6. So good indicator that his skill set should transfer. I want to circle back on that, though, Scott, after we talk to Hayden Presley here. Glad I could finally watch live. Favorite show on NMHH. Thanks so much, Hayden. That's really nice of you to say. If Nix turns out to be as good as Cousins, I'll be happy. I just want to be a playoff team. Cousins got paid an incredible contract, and honestly, with where defenses are playing right now, you can take advantage of the middle of the field and make the right reads. That can go a long way in the NFL. So, if he turns out to be Kirk Cousins, that would be an emphatic hit for the 12th overall pick. Obviously, people want more than that. You should want more than that, but let's be real. That would be a hit.
Yeah, he went, he's about 3-to-1 touchdown to turnover ratio on some teams that haven't been all that great. Again, I mentioned the Washington Commanders and the dumpster fire that they've been under Daniel Snyder. I know he's gone, but it takes a while to dig out from under that. And, then he had some success, some really good success with Minnesota as they were trying to rebuild that team. I think that'd be that would be a hit. I agree with you, Hayden. And thank you for the super. If you get Kirk Cousins production from the number 12 pick at quarterback, you're going to be pretty happy. You're going to be pretty happy. Now, it's funny. A lot of people, just like Dak Prescott, we don't want him. We don't want him, Nick. That'd be a fail. He's a pretty good quarterback. I mean, I know every quarterback I draft, I want him to be a Hall of Famer, but they're not all going to be Hall of Famers. And those would be big improvements. Talking about a difference maker on the defensive line, right? Well, that'd be a pretty good difference maker on the Denver Broncos, too, coming in at quarterback position.
Especially if it's on a rookie quarterback contract. I will say, I know that PFF has made a lot about Bo Nix's numbers under pressure, but it's a little bit two-sided coming here from Pro Football Focus, in my opinion, because they've released a lot of statistical analysis over the last 5 years that numbers under pressure are extremely volatile and not predictive, really. From year to year, your ability under pressure can vary widely. And even we have a article from PFF back in 2018 talking about the stability of ability under pressure, and that they say it should not really be used to project play at the quarterback position, and rather you should look at clean pocket data. It's just much cleaner year to year when you're looking at playmaking and whatnot. So I think it's a little bit interesting. Again, it's a statistic that really does stand out for Bo Nix the last 2 seasons, but it's something that year to year at the NFL is extremely volatile and not predictive. And also, there was a study done by Kevin Cole, who was one of the lead data analysts at PFF for a number of years, left a few years ago, and now writes a subscription newsletter called Unexpected Points. And he did an analysis last year where he looked at a bunch of college stats and how it correlated to success at the NFL level. And actually, pressure stats was something that was pretty good going from college to the NFL. That said, Scott, you had to have a large sample size of plays under pressure for that to actually correlate. And he used the example of Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson was okay under pressure at BYU. He was never pressured, though. And that's something that not concerning completely with Bo Nix, but the reality of the situation is that while his stats were very good under pressure at Oregon last season, he had by far the lowest percentage dropbacks of any quarterback in Division I football out of the top. Gosh, let's see how many quarterbacks here. Top 200 quarterbacks. His pressured dropback percentage over last season was only 14.8%. He was only 63 dropbacks out of 426 total under pressure. So that is something where I know the stats are good there under pressure, but there are peripheral things here with the pressure data that says, I don't think it's a transfer 1-to-1 where we should be a little bit red flag. Let's wait and see if that actually leads to NFL success, because it's volatile year to year, and he was hardly ever pressured at Oregon. So we don't know if that's actually going to be a positive for him at the NFL level.
Well, the good news is he'll get pressured at the Denver Broncos, and we'll find out.
Yep.
So how quickly can you read? Again, the hot reads, the pre-snap stuff, I think is as important as anything for Bo Nix, which he excels at.
Mm-hmm.
So we think, how
Yep.
much does this translate? I don't know. I don't want to get just too much into the numbers because the game's different. We talk all the time that statistics in football mean the least compared to any other. I mean, yes, I know it matters, but the statistics, it's such a team game. It's a system game. The volatility of, I've used that word a ton today, of who you play week in and week out in college football, that the statistics just, they don't matter near as much as in something like baseball. So yes, he's had good statistics. Yes, the stuff that Sean Payton likes, he does well. Now I'm ready to see. Now, what do we expect? I expect him to make good decisions, get rid of the ball quickly when there's pressure coming. Can you read that quickly? That's going to matter more than that's going to matter the most for him, I believe.
I'm with you. Again, I think it's interesting that it is brought up as a strong suit when a lot of the numbers outside would suggest that it's a question mark right now at the NFL level, like as much as anything is.
I think it is for all of them. I really do. I think does Jaden Daniels want to tuck and run the first time? Does JJ McCarthy with the monster running game? Is Caleb Williams going to try and freelance too much? I think that's a question for every single rookie quarterback. And like I said, the one that bothered me the most about Zach Wilson, most rookie quarterbacks struggle when they're under pressure. That's what you try and do. You try and put them under pressure because their decision-making isn't as quick. They don't read the defenses pre-snap as well. Zach Wilson was worse the more time you gave him. It's like he panicked. Like I got happy. I don't know what to do. I got time. I'm supposed to be under pressure.
Yep.
Throw it. It was I can't remember watching anything like it, honestly. And Keith's talking about, Kirk Cousins is a great example of the middle-class quarterback that no longer exists. When did the number 7 quarterback go this year? I think it was Spencer Rattler in the 5th, and it was the biggest variance between quarterback draft picks at like 12 and 150 something in NFL draft history.
Yeah, it was wild. And I'm with you, Scott, on the overall stats. It's their system. Everything is interconnected in that way. There's not as many one-on-ones, and it's a little bit larger of a system, right? More things, more variables in the output there. But again, even though the margins are thin and they would not have like the R value would not be incredible for a lot of these things, not to get too statistically nerdy here for you folks. But you're looking for edges, right? And those are things that, at least to me, are like, okay, well, that's an interesting one, no doubt. And we'll see. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You see PFF and some of the analytics, like, look at his adjusted completion percentage under pressure. But then the scouting reports and what I saw was man, when he actually has to hang in the pocket and get from his first read to second read without it being the automatic check down, I have questions there. So that's something that, I mean, even Sean Payton, one of the first comments he made in the press conference was Bo needs to do a little bit better job of hanging tough in the pocket and getting through his reads. So we will see what that looks like at the NFL level. And I agree, some of the data from Nix under pressure has to do with identifying issues pre-snap and knowing where to go with the football when he felt pressure. But sometimes that's going to leave meat on the bone, especially for an NFL quarterback when you're hunting for explosive plays. So what does that look like? Again, that being one of the positives. I think they're putting a little bit too much weight on that, given what we know historically. Jay Roper comes in and says, I recall folks on here saying Zach Wilson plays better when he's under pressure than when he has time. I mean, he's been bad on both. So it's bad or worse.
Jay, I've said that a bunch just because he's got physical talent. And when you run, you're not reading anymore. You're looking for one open guy and you're like, okay, throw the ball. It becomes a one read thing. Either I run it or I throw it. And he's got arm talent. He's got physical ability. Think of it like this, Jay. You see sometimes wide receivers make the hardest catches and drop the easiest ones. And sometimes they say he had too much time to think about it. You've heard that expression used a lot. It's like, okay, I've got too much time to think. What am I going to do once I've got the ball? He was running before he caught it. Your head gets in the way instead of your instincts, and your talent takes over. And with Zach Wilson, his head getting in the way of his natural ability has been a problem. Can that slow down for him? We'll see, but it's an expensive game, and you're not going to pick up a fifth-year option on that and pay to find out. You're going to pay a quarter of that if you're the Denver Broncos and give away a nothing draft pick. Then it's worth trying to find out. And he'll get a chance somewhere else at a practice squad, but it was an awful price to pay for the New York Jets to try and keep finding out when he wasn't very good at it. Real quick, I'm going to come back to David. Roy says, I thought Michael Pratt went higher than Rattler. No, he went almost 100 picks later. He went 245, I think 10th to last pick. Michael Pratt almost didn't get drafted, which if you watch Broncos for breakfast, really shouldn't have been a surprise to you.
My guy Leary, I think, was drafted before him out of North Carolina State and Kentucky.
God bless him. I just didn't see it, man. I just did not see an NFL quarterback in Michael Pratt. I see a coach in waiting.
Brett Rippon.
Hell, if you can get 3 or 4 years as a third stringer, you can get a nice living and pension, et cetera, et cetera. Good for you. I'd be pleased as punch. My kid has a career that Michael Pratt has had. That would be awesome. I mean, I'm not trying to bag on him, but I wasn't surprised to see him fall into the back end of the 7th. David says, why won't the Broncos have a top 5 pick in 2025? Your offense is fairly solidified except for the quarterback position, which you feel better about. Your offensive line is solid. You've got a good wide receiver room for the most part, if everybody stays healthy, with a number 1 in Cortland Sutton, who is criminally underrated, I still think, even by Broncos country, just because there's is he going to go? Is he going to stay? And if he's going to go, well, he wasn't that good anyway. He's a number 2. I think he's really good. You've made some improvements on the defense. I still think there's some volatility there. Again, there's that word again, Scott, the theme of the day. You've improved on the defensive line. You've got some depth in the defensive backfield where you've lost some guys. And you won 8 games last year. You could arguably not regress. Now, why could it get worse? Lloyd Cushenberry was a hell of a lot better than anybody thought he was. Mike McGlinchey is awful and is a turnstile at right tackle. You've got nobody other than Cortland Sutton who can catch the ball. Your tight end room is a mess because Dulcich can't get out there. The guys who regressed last year, like DJ Jones, don't get any better. You find out why you got Jonathan Franklin Myers for a 6th-round pick in 2026. Riley Moss ends up being a nobody. Marvin Mims can't catch a cold or run a route and is just a special teams gadget player. How much of that's going to come to fruition? Very, very little. But those are both sides of the coin of what, and Bo Nix struggles mightily I forgot that one. And Bo Nix struggles mightily as a rookie. I lean to the side of, I think you're right around 500.
Vegas has them at 5.5 over under. I think maybe it's 6.5.
I take the over on 5.5 wins. I think 7 and 10 is about right, or better in there this year.
Yep, I think that 5 to 8 range makes sense. We'll see. Why won't they have a top 5 pick? Sean Payton year 2, and you already saw what coaching competency does, maximizing a pretty poor overall roster last season. But we'll see. I mean, you look at the depth chart. I think that Denver is one of the more shallow teams in football. And if you have a run on injuries that last season you did not have, it can get pretty scary pretty quickly. But we'll see. Top 5, they'll probably be picking somewhere from 7 to 15 if you bet right now. But given Denver has a rookie quarterback right now, they are a wide range team. I mean, maybe Nix comes in and is awesome, and the rushing ability is utilized by Sean Payton. The lack of sacks and fumbles really raises the floor and keeping the offense on time. And what Sean Payton's done best, the quick game stuff in his career with Drew Brees. Now, granted, he's changed quarterback to quarterback, but the quick game stuff, maybe that's something that we didn't see last year because it wasn't a Sean Payton thing. It was a Russell Wilson thing. Do they have the weapons to really maximize the quick game? We'll see. Broncos country domination comes in. $5 super says, I don't know how to work this. You think Bo Nix will come in and be kind of like Dalton Reisner was with Garrett Bowles in his first season with Zach Wilson? I don't really understand what you're saying here totally. Sorry about that Broncos country domination. I think that Zach Wilson is really not a factor in terms of what happens with Bo Nix, other than maybe some level of quarterback competition. But as far as the Garrett Bowles of Dalton Reisner being like a mentor situation, it's probably more Stidham to Nix than anything, who knows the system, has been here, been around the league for a bit. I mean, heck, those two know each other already, right? They were both on Auburn's roster as well, I believe, at least at some point.
I think they missed each other by a year.
Okay. Was it?
I think Nix came in as Stidham was going out. I don't remember for sure. I can recall basically every game in the 90s from Auburn, but I've fallen off since I got into the business as far as following them. Funny how that happens. They get nasty. Fans get nasty when you don't sing the praises.
Yeah. And I did want to come back to the next point here, Scott, talking about why the floor is good. It's the quick game stuff, and PFF agrees there. They say a Sean Payton offense is all about the quick game, dedication to the run game, and taking shots deep downfield. Quick game is heavy on stick and spacing concepts. 2 plays Oregon ran frequently. Nix already does a good job with pre-snap reads and avoids the negative plays like we talked about. And traits, Peyton covets at the position. Drew Brees, arguably the most accurate quarterback in the history of the NFL, accomplished that with incredible anticipation and footwork. Nix still needs to improve in those areas at the NFL level, as he tends to fade away from throws when he doesn't need to and occasionally gets sloppy with his footwork. The shot plays Peyton likes to call can be executed by Nix. His 95.5 passing grade on throws 20-plus yards down the field ranks 3rd in this class, and also very good in big-time throws. Peyton doesn't marry this with play action very often, producing the 3rd lowest rate in the NFL with Drew Brees and just a 22.8 clip with Russell Wilson. Honestly, Scott, my biggest complaint about Sean Payton is if you want to be a run-heavy team, heavy personnel run team, why aren't you marrying play action with that? It's one of the things that I think's been why the Shanahan offenses have been so great, is like the statistical output on play action is awesome. And we see that especially trying to manipulate linebackers over the middle of the field and spacing stuff and getting safeties to bite downfield. Why aren't we seeing more play action? I don't really understand that from Sean Payton, but overall, I think it's a good point.
Well, we've only seen him with the Denver Broncos really with one coach,
Yep.
With one quarterback, and Russell Wilson isn't comfortable in the pocket. And can you waggle? Can you boot every single time? Can you play action and move out every single time, move in the pocket? Probably not. Nix will be much more comfortable in the pocket than Russell Wilson was. I don't think that's a bold statement because Russell Wilson wasn't comfortable in the pocket. You'd see any hint of pressure. There's no climbing. There was always turn your back on the pressure and try and escape out the backside. That gets really frustrating as a coach, as we know. So going back to the previous thought, I think it was just trying to say, Dalton Reisner was pretty good as a rookie because he had a veteran next to him. I don't think that Zach Wilson is going to be much of a mentor to Bo Nix.
He's fighting for a job.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure Zach Wilson will be on the roster.
Yeah, exactly. So final bit here from PFF as we wrap up. What to expect. Nix should be the day 1 starter for the Broncos. While drafting a quarterback is often a telltale sign of that, sometimes the roster doesn't need it. Looking at you, Atlanta. Nix, on the other hand, walks into a quarterback room with little to no competition for the starting job. Wide receiver Cortland Sutton is reportedly unhappy, but if he's on the field for the Broncos, he is the most reliable, big-bodied threat to go along with Marvin Mims, Tim Patrick returns from injuries. You also have Troy Franklin in the mix. Nix will endure his struggles as any rookie does, but Denver can protect him. He has quality receiving options to distribute the ball and can develop into a reliable NFL starting quarterback. So I do expect Nix to start year one. I agree with the quick game passing stuff. I agree with the intelligent stuff too. I mean, no quarterback. No, I don't think there's an offensive mind out there right now that is as old school in terms of putting so much mentally on the quarterback as Sean Payton, especially week to week, game to game. I mean, I think we even got more shots from Sean Payton about Russell Wilson this week again. So that's one of the big reasons to be sold on Bo Nix, is because of how impressed they were with him from a mental preparation, information processing ability. And that can help you week to week, game to game, play to play as well with a Sean Payton. So excited to see what that can look like. Again, I have a little bit of questions about some of the stats that made Nix look phenomenal at the NFL or at the college level and how that translates. Ability under pressure, some of the accuracy stuff as well. I don't think is he the all-time greatest accurate quarterback ever? I don't think the tape says that, but he's accurate. But should be a fun time. And I know we got to wrap up, Scott, because we don't want to go past 10:30 your time too much. But we got Monica coming in, says, do you guys think we can use Zach in preseason and see if Bo Nix starts? Maybe some desperate teams want Zach after. Can that even happen? Crazy things happen all the time.
Yeah, you can absolutely make a trade of Zach Wilson. I want to see Bo Nix in the preseason. He's a rookie. You want him to start. I want him to play. I want to see him in the preseason. If you don't play, if Bo Nix is your starter and you don't play him in the preseason, I think you're basically punting on 2024. You're saying, okay, we don't want to risk him getting hurt because we're just trying to survive 2024. So we're not going to put him out there in preseason. If we want to win some games, he needs some reps with the team. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
So, we will see. But yes, Zach Wilson will get some of his we'll get some reps in the preseason for sure. Assuming he's still there, which is not 100% certainty. But I want to see Zach Wilson throw the ball around some with that. That'll be interesting to me. I want to see Zach Wilson throw the ball around some in preseason games. Michael's closing us out. Thank you, Michael. He says, great show today, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Go, Michael. Thank you, sir. Open us up with the sunrise and the sunset. Thanks for everything you do for Mile High Huddle and Nick and myself.
Yeah, appreciate you so much. We're going to wrap it on up here. Thank you for everybody for joining us today. I expect Nix to start year one. I expect him to be a kind of output that we saw from Russell Wilson last season. Maybe not the red zone efficiency passing, but the combination of the athleticism and the usage of, we know how much Sean Payton loved the Taysom Hill stuff there. You can utilize some of those similar concepts, I believe, with Nix as well in terms of, and also marrying it to the quick game. So will be a lot of fun to see what happens. And we're going to follow it. Of course, quarterback. A lot of fun here. Make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendall, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. You haven't done so yet, follow us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on our YouTube page. Thanks to Kenneth Booker, Michael Ronquillo, Lawrence Rivera, Keith Brugman, Gary Palmer, Coach Chris, Troy Boer, Lawrence Rivera again, DWI guys, Ethan, good to see you. Hayden Presley, Lawrence Rivera, Jared Carmelo, Broncos Country Domination coming in. We appreciate all you guys. Also wanted to give another shout out to Ethan. I know that his partner's father passed away, and hopefully everything is going okay out there with you and your friend. Ethan, appreciate you, and that was a beautiful
Kevin,
tribute.
we saw your note. We're thinking about you too, brother.
And yes, of course. Any final thoughts, Scott? I know we got to get flying.
No, we got it. Looking forward to again. There's lots of Bo Nix talk. Bo Nix is quarterback of this team. Now let's see what's next. Let's see what else happens, because there's going to be 40 moves between now and camp, now and between opening days. So interesting to see what the Broncos do. And rookie minicamp should be cranking up here soon. And we might have a schedule this week as well. I think I saw that if history repeats itself, we might have one as soon as May 9th, which would be Thursday.
Yep. Hopefully that's coming up here soon.
And
so
then
appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Then we can get the meet and greet scheduled quickly after that too.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So appreciate everyone. Have a great one. Happy Monday. Continue just kindness, compassion. We'll see you next Wednesday or this Wednesday. Go Broncos.